Hey, welcome back to another episode of the She's Making an Impact podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Ngom. Today we're talking about discerning the seasons. This is so important. So, if you've been with me for a while, you know I'm in like this season of change. And I've had a lot of people asking me, like, hey, Rachel, what's coming? What are you doing? Do you have a program? Like, what are you working on? So like people that are a part of our community, but then like friends and family members, hey, what are you up to? What's the plan for your business? People on our team, hey, Rachel, what's the plan? And I'm like, I don't know because I'm in a season of change. And I'm going to explain a little bit here. Let's go through Ecclesiastes. I'm going to explain my situation and then how this pertains to you, because here's what I know. There are different seasons to our lives. There are different seasons to our businesses, and we have to be able to discern the season and know which season we are in. Like after I had Gabrielle, I was not in a season of hustle after I had her. I was in a season of COVID was just happening. That was like right when COVID hit. Uh, but I also knew this might be my last baby. This might be the last like baby cuddles and soaking it all up, and I didn't want to miss anything. So I was very intentional. This is a season of family, season of soaking up the baby cuddles and really taking advantage of it. It was not a season of like go, 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 go. You might have seasons like that in your business and it's great, but you have to be able to discern the season and know which one you are in. Okay, let's get to Ecclesiastes. There's a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather them, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to search and a time to give up, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be silent and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. What do workers gain from their toil? I have seen the burden God has laid on the human race. He has made everything beautiful in its time. He has also set eternity in the human heart, yet no one can fathom what God has done from beginning to end. So that's Ecclesiastes 3 1 to 11. So we need to understand, what season are we in? Because we're going to go through different seasons of our lives. Are you in a season of building, of planting, of nursing babies, of homeschooling? Because if you're running a business, there's going to be different seasons where you're like, all right, it's a go time. Like we're going to hustle and make things happen. But then you're going to have a season where you might be taking a step back. Maybe you decided to homeschool your kids. Business is great and it is awesome to make money to be able to give and contribute. But what I have realized is my family has to come first. And I can't, like pour into the thousands or the millions or however many people I've gotten to reach with our podcast, our blog. Everything has been over 1 million, which is crazy. If that means I'd have to sacrifice anything at home. And so I'm like, my babies have to come first. So I like, as these kids are growing up, I have Gabrielle, she just turned 4. TJ is going to be turning 11 next month. Like, I am in a season where I'm pouring into them and I'm going to be homeschooling TJ next year. I'm also in a season where I'm in school. The Lord told me about a year ago, like, hey, you're shutting down Activate. And at the time, I didn't like fully understand what that meant. I was just like, all right, God, like, he's like, I'm not in that program, shut it down. I'm like, okay, I, I'm going to be obedient and I trust you. So we shut it down. And it's really interesting to see. It's like the Lord will ask you to do something, and it's after you do it and you see it from an outside perspective that you can see why the Lord had you shut it down. So it was like after I shut it down, I got to look at it and I'm like, oh, I now understand like how much ego and pride I had, because I had $1 million business and like all the things that came with it. And by letting it go, I got to be like, okay, it's humbling. It's humbling to not have that anymore. Um, it was great at the time, but I didn't realize how much of it I was like, I built this. It wasn't the Lord, right? Um, so as I'm in that season of literally just waiting on the Lord of, hey, I'm in school now. I'm seeing all these miracles happen. What's next? And I'm like, because I'm very entrepreneurial and I love to create things. So I'm like, hey, God, what's the plan? What's the plan? Like, what's the strategy? What are we doing? And the Lord, I was like almost rebuked. He's like, hey, now is not the time for strategy. Like, that's not the time that you are in right now. Now is the time for like laying the foundation. I'm like, okay. And it was so, yeah. So after we had that little moment, I went to minister at a conference. And while I was at that conference, this was like 2 weeks later, this girl comes up to me and she was like, the Lord just says, wait. I don't know what that means, but just wait. And I'm like, I know what it means. I'm not in the timing for that. Let me read you. I am read so you're gonna see, I'm gonna show you the book if you can see the video. It's called Giant Slayers and it's by Leif Hetland. And if you can see video, you can see that my dog Zozo ate the back cover and a few of the back pages. Because if I leave anything on the couch, even though, how old is that dog? 11? Yeah, he's still a little puppy where he'll get into shenanigans, but nobody sees him do it. And I'm like, Zozo, how did you? So I can't leave anything on the couch. Sorry, Leif. By the way, I'm interviewing Leif on this week on the show, so you'll probably hear his episode in 2 weeks. Um, I'm so excited. I am so excited. So this is his book. It's called one of his books, Giant Slayers. Leif is like a hero in the modern day missions movement. And he has seen over 1.5 million people come to know Jesus in the Middle East. Yeah. So let me read a page that pertains to this and then just get ready for the interview that's coming because it's gonna be good. I'm so excited. We got some good, like the next 2 weeks. I'm like a little kid. I'm so excited for who I get to talk to because of this podcast. It's such an honor and so much fun. Okay, so the chapter, I'm only going to read a page. It's called Understand God's Timing. So David volunteered to fight the giant Goliath because he recognized God's call. As we talked about it in the last chapter, he knew this was the right battle for him, but it's possible to fight the right fight at the wrong time. As David listened to Goliath, he not only sensed his calling, but also God's timing. He knew it was his moment and he acted accordingly. This is what caused David to go to Saul and say, I will go and fight him. Previously, David had been anointed by the prophet Samuel as the future king of Israel. Yet after he was anointed, David returned to his job watching his father's sheep. It was not yet time for him to be king. In his patience, David displayed great wisdom. It may have been tempting to think about storming the castle, declaring himself the new king, and attempting to depose King Saul, but it was not yet time, and David knew it. Thankfully, David did not try to figure out the timing on his own. He simply waited for his moment. Not long after, he arrived at the battle with Goliath, which would position him as a leader in Israel's army and connect him closely to Saul's family. David sensed God's timing and he responded to the call. David was called to be a leader and defender of Israel, and that day on the field with Goliath, he began stepping into that calling. David's encounter with Goliath was not happenstance. It was a dramatic moment of transition in God's plan for David's life. It was God's perfect timing, and it set David up for so much more than one victory over one giant. In David's story, we see two aspects of understanding God's timing: recognizing the season we are in and recognizing his divine moments when seasons shift and promotion happens suddenly. Both of these aspects of divine timing are crucial to our ability to overcome giants and progress from season to season in pursuit of our destiny. He goes into a lot more, so I highly recommend this book. It's good. I'm like, I would give it to somebody, but Zozo, he's a little shenanigan. Um, so I want you just to reflect and what really you need to do if you're in this entrepreneurial space. You can't be looking at other people and comparing yourself to them because then you're like, oh my goodness, look at what they're doing. Look at what they're creating. Because if you're in a season where you're pouring into your kids and business isn't your top priority, it becomes like a shiny object that you're like, oh, but I really want to do this. And then it's really easy to just like jump into something when it's not the time for you and it's not the season for you. So you got to keep blinders on and ask the Lord, hey, where are we? What season are we at right now? And one of the things in this book, but also in when I'm interviewing Will Hart, he talks about the suddenlies of like, we're waiting on the Lord, we're waiting on the Lord, we're waiting on the Lord. And then all of a sudden it's like, he's like, hey, it's time, it's go time, let's go. So just remember that the seasons don't last forever. And if you're going through a winter season, just remember that after winter, there is spring. So I hope this helped you today and spoke some truth into you. And if it did, please share this with somebody and then get ready for some amazing content that's going to be coming up soon. I'm so excited and I hope you have a great day. Bye.